We're proud to announce that from Forest Pack 7 and onwards, Corona users can now scatter and randomise animated objects. All 4 of Forest Pack's animation modes are supported, so users can scatter items that follow the source geometry, randomise the starting point of animations, offset them using a map, or control the absolute frames using a texture. Let's take a closer look at how each of these works. For the purposes of illustration, and to make viewport performance a little faster, we're going to illustrate using a simple box with an animated bend modifier. Later we'll swap this for wheat geometry. So if we scrub the animation bar, nothing happens. And this is because animation is disabled by default. So the first step is always to enable an animation mode. We'll select the first option, which is called follow geometry. And in this mode, the items scattered with Forest Pack simply match the source geometry. All items move at the same time. Okay, so moving down, the second option randomizes the starting frame of the animated objects. This allows you to use a single animated model to create a lot of variation by starting the instance's animations playing from randomly selected points along the timeline. You'll notice when you activate random samples mode that the time offset and count parameters become available. These are used to control the number of sample points and the distance between them along the timeline. To create these points, the count parameter defines the total number of samples, and the time offset determines the number of frames between them starting at frame 0. For example, with these settings, we're creating 10 samples that start from frame 0, 20, 40, 60, and so on. The next mode uses these same settings, but this time a map can be used to precisely specify the placement of a sample point from which an animation will start. With these settings, a black pixel on the map tells Forest Pack to use the first sample point, and a white value is sample point 10, with the in-between samples picked using a linear ramp of grey values. This can be useful in many situations. In this scene we used it with a simple noise map to create the effect of wind blowing across the field of wheat in waves. For the next mode, let's change the box to include a basic growth animation. Now this mode works a little differently. Instead of creating an equal number of spaced sample points along the timeline from which animation will start playing, you define a range of frames using a start and end parameter. A grayscale map is then used to control the absolute frame displayed on this range based on grayscale values. It's really useful for growth animations and that kind of thing. Scrubbing the timeline in this mode won't result in any animation playback. Instead, you've got to animate the grayscale value itself in the map. This can be useful for things like growth animations, or when you want the animations to look as though they're reacting to other elements in the scene. We hope you agree that animation modes are an incredibly powerful tool, and we're delighted that users will now have access to them whether they use Corona, V-Ray, or both. Forest Pack 7 is available now. Find out more on the i2 Software website.